so I'm doing some video and voice work right now. This is work, okay? This is just like laying bricks, going into the coal mines. What's the difference? You're doing shit, I'm doing shit. Seems like the same thing to me. So the next day, Myles Standish. So Myles Standish, the great Puritan pilgrim warrior. He was the battle commander. He was the war chief. He was basically the Secretary of Defense. So Myles Standish, out of the Pilgrims, the ones that were eating, the birds and the festival, that business party. This is with William Bradford and that big business party with all the food that no Thanksgiving was declared and it was about business. Anyways, Myles Standish comes straight out of those Pilgrims. So he arranged to meet with the Pequot. With Pequot. This is a Native American. Pequot is this guy's name. Over a meal in one of West Augusta's one-room houses, Pequot brought with him Wittawamut, a third warrior, an adolescent boy, Wittawamut's brother, and several women. Myles Standish had 3 men of Plymouth and Hobomok with him in the house. On an arranged signal, the English shut the door of the house, and Myles Standish attacked Pequot, stabbing him repeatedly with the man's own knife. Wittawamut and the third warrior were also killed. Leaving the house, Myles Standish ordered 2 more Massachusetts warriors put to death. Gathering his men, Myles Standish went outside the walls of West Augusta in search of Obtakius, a sachem of the Massachusetts tribe. The Englishmen soon encountered Obtakius with a group of warriors, and a skirmish ensued, during which Obtakius escaped. Having accomplished his mission, Myles Standish can't stand his ish. Myles Standish returned to Plymouth with Wittawamut's head. So he carried Wittawamut's head on a pike. These are the Puritans, the one that thought that their Christianity was more pure, I think, than the Church of England. So they were breaking off from the Church of England to establish their own Christianity. These were Protestants who were better than other Protestants. And so then Myles Standish put Wittawamut's head on a pike. These silly Plymouth plantation English men, good, decent Christian, Myles Standish, John Winthrop, a bunch of ruffians, aren't they? Aren't they a bunch of ruffians? And not just because they wear their stupid-ass ruffs, but also because they're into genocidal, murderous, psychopathic behavior. The Mystic Massacre happened on May 26, 1637. The Mystic Massacre happened at present-day Groton, Connecticut during the Pequot War. 700 Pequot elderly women and children were slaughtered, 700 of them, and the English gunned and clubbed every single last one of them. Only 5 escaped. So this is a bloodbath, a massacre. This is when English colonists under Winthrop, John Winthrop's the governor, and then John Mason is the one that's commanding this thing. Pequot are kicking the English's ass, so the English said, fuck it, we're not going to play fair anymore, we're just going to kill, the nits. Nits make life, so they're going to kill the babies. Kill the babies, kill the women, kill the old people, because it's easier to do so, under the dusk, hide under the dusk of night. And attacking kids, children, women, like that's an easy battle, right? That's an easy fight. Though, if they were gunned, if they were taught to shoot a gun, they probably could have actually had a chance. 1637. Okay, so this is a while ago, right? This is what, nearly 400 years ago. In 1637. It was a crazy time. This is before the Revolutionary era. This is before the Enlightenment age, before the scientific revolution, or maybe right at the beginning of it. You have Rene Descartes. Rene Descartes in 1637 published his promoted intellectual rigor in his book Discourse on the Method. He also introduced the Cartesian coordinate system in its appendix, La Geometrie, in 1637. So some geometry book and a discourse on method. He wanted intellectual rigor. And Rene Descartes, in his discourse on method, a philosophical bomb that he dropped, was when you use logic purely, let's say all the five senses don't work. The five senses, the sight, hear, taste, all of them, they're prone to not always be true. There's colorblind people. There's people who are blind. What about dreams? Dreams aren't any of those senses. That's just in your brain. And so your senses are the way we perceive the world, but sometimes the way we perceive the world isn't always 100%. So can you always trust your senses? If you use logic, you have to doubt everything. Well, maybe not. Maybe we can't. Actually, maybe our senses are limiting us in our intellectual pursuit. But Rene Descartes, he knew that even though he could deny the five senses, he could not deny that he was doubting that he was doubting. In his mind, he was doubting. He was a thinking substance, at the very least. Deny all the senses, but he was a thinking substance, and he couldn't deny that he was doubting. He couldn't deny that he was a thinking substance. So at the very least, pure scientific logic proves that we exist. Rene Descartes issues these immortal words, I think, therefore I am. I think, therefore I exist. Maybe just as a thinking substance, maybe as just some sort of energy, some vibration, but I'm sure he doesn't, just stop there, but pure logic, at the very least, proves that we exist, and that gives me some comfort. On May 13th, 1637, Cardinal Richelieu of France creates the table knife. So the table knife was just invented 1637, the same year of the Pequot, the war, the massacre, the Mystic River, the Mystic Massacre. So the table knife, before the table knife, really wasn't everybody who lived before May 13th, 1637, who wasn't in France, around this Cardinal Richelieu. Just a bunch of barbaric savages. I mean, my God, you guys have just been, what do you do with no table knife? How do you butter your bread? What do you do? You use a butcher knife with your hands? Fucking barbaric savages, bunch of Neanderthals mixed with African blood. On January 23rd, 1637, the Dutch governor Johan Martius lands in Pernambuco, Brazil. The Dutch are fucking ambitious as shit. They were colonizing in North and South America, and then eventually we're going to see Africa too. The Dutch were ambitious when it came to tulips. Too ambitious, actually. On February 3rd, 1637, the Tulip Mania bubble collapsed in the Dutch Republic. Tulip Mania was a period in the Dutch Golden Age during which contract prices for bulbs of the recently introduced tulip reached extraordinarily high levels and then suddenly collapsed. At the peak of Tulip Mania in March 1637, some single tulip bulbs sold for more than 10 times the annual income of a skilled craftsman, and is generally considered the first recorded speculative bubble or economic bubble, although some researchers have noted that the Kipper und Wipper Zeit episode in 1619-22, a Europe-wide chain of debasement of the metal content of coins to fund warfare, featured mania-like similarities to a bubble. The term tulip mania is now often used metaphorically to refer to any large economic bubble when asset prices deviate from intrinsic value. At one point, 12 acres of land were offered for a Semper Augustus bulb. Semper Augustus, fucking tulip. Here's 12 acres of land for a bulb, for a variety of tulip. 10 years times a person's salary, they make $10,000 is the poor average in Owsley County, Kentucky. $10,000 per person is their income, multiplied by 5, $50,000. So if you were to take the poorest American, multiply theirs, it was 10 times the amount, so it's actually $100,000. $100,000 for one fucking tulip, $100,000. 12 acres, What the fuck were you Dutch were they were fucking nuts. They were a little bit crazy. Colonizing all over the world, thinking tulips were worth way more than what they actually were supposed to be worth. On February 15th, 1637, Ferdinand II dies. And so Ferdinand III, naturally, replaces Ferdinand II as the Holy Roman Emperor on February 15th, 1637. I wonder if that's what John Winthrop was talking about. In John Winthrop's Thanksgiving Day official declaration, John Winthrop said the 12th of the 8th month was ordered to be kept a day of public thanksgiving to God for his great mercies in subduing the Pequot, bringing the soldiers in safety, the success of the conference, and good news from Germany. So when he declared that first official Thanksgiving Day to be kept every year, the 12th day of the 8th month, for subduing the Pequot, bringing soldiers to safety, success of the conference, and good news from Germany. What's this good news from Germany that was happening in 1637? My guess was the 30 Years' War. The Catholics versus the Protestants were fighting for 30 years in German-speaking countries. Might have been because Ferdinand II had died, and he's a Catholic. He's, the Holy Roman Empire, so that's the Catholic Church. And he had died, so therefore the Protestant, John Winthrop, was happy about it. Could have been a battle thing, too, if they're talking about the 8th month. So that's August. So I think it has something to do with it. Interesting about the Holy Roman Empire was Napoleon took it out in a single day without even firing a shot. The Holy Roman Emperor just gave up. He abdicated. It turns out the Holy Roman Empire actually isn't Holy Roman or an empire. It's just one big fucking illusion. Ferdinand III, here's some things that he had done while he was the Holy Roman Emperor. So it's one big illusion, but, if you got guns, well, your guns kind of back that illusion. Ferdinand III had been elected King of the Romans in 1636. He succeeded his father as Holy Roman Emperor in 1637. He hoped to be able to make peace soon with France and Sweden, but the war dragged on for another 11 years, finally coming to an end with the Peace of Westphalia, the Treaty of Munster, Germany, with France, Treaty of Osnabrück with Sweden. In 1648, both negotiated by envoy Maximilian von Unzu Traut-Monsdorf, a diplomat who had been made a count in 1623 by his father, Ferdinand II, during the last period of the war. In 1644, Ferdinand III gave all rulers of German states the right to conduct their own foreign policy. Ius belli ac pacis. This way the emperor was trying to gain more allies in the negotiations with France and Sweden. This very edict contributed to the gradual erosion of the imperial authority in the Holy Roman Empire. After 1648, the emperor was engaged in carrying out the terms of the treaty and ridding Germany of the foreign soldiery. In 1656, he sent an army into Italy to assist Spain in their struggle with France. He just conducted an alliance with Poland to check the aggressions of Charles X of Sweden when he died April 2nd, 1657. So, Holy Roman Emperor for 20 years, had a lot of battles, engagements, and shit. So he had some fucking power. 1637, right? This fictional, they weren't holy, they weren't Roman, they weren't emperors. They just was a weird-ass alliance of princes and kings and land that the churches sat on. So that's, the Holy Roman Emperor, that guy had died, and then his son succeeded him, Ferdinand III. August 28th, there's a Holy Roman Empire, right? There's no Holy Roman Empire today. August 28th, 1637, WIC Colonel Hans Coyne, a Dutchman, conquers Fort Elmina, West Africa. I'm not sure exactly which country Fort Elmina is in. With the capture of the Portuguese fort, the WIC became the most powerful players on the Gold Coast. WIC is the West India Company, WIC, a.k.a. also known as the Dutch United West India Company. So the West India Company becomes most powerful players on the Gold Coast after it conquers the Portuguese fort on August 28, 1637. The fortress factory of Elmina as Saint George de Mina was constructed by the Portuguese in 1482, an attempt by a Dutch expedition to seize Elmina in 1625 failed. So they've done it before. 12 years afterwards, 1637, a Dutch squadron of 9 ships and 800 men commanded by Johann Maurits van Nassau, according to other sources by Hans Coin, supported over 1,000 African auxiliaries. They tried again. They first occupied Santiago Hill, where the Portuguese had built a church, where they established their artillery. That's where they established it. From there, they shelled Elmina. The fort, defended only by a few dozen men, surrendered. On August 26th, Johann Maurits van Nassau was Dutch governor of Brazil, the WIC, West India Company. The Dutch established Elmina as the administrator of the WIC possessions on the Gold Coast. They held on to Elmina until 1872 when they sold it to the British, the Gold Coast colony. So what are the Dutch and the Portuguese and the British all doing in West Africa? The Gold Coast probably getting the fucking gold, right? Blood diamonds, blood golds, blood ivories, blood rubber. The Dutch had colonies in Africa, North and South America. They're a fucking empire. The Dutch were a force to be reckoned with, a major world power just a few centuries ago.